In 1472, the sailing ships of the Portuguese explorer Fernando Po dropped their anchors in the estuary of the Wauri River in the Gulf of Guinea, where equatorial and tropical Africa meet, today the site of the city of Douala. The dark waters of the river teem with brightly colored crustaceans, inspiring the name to the navigator Po, Rio dos Camarões, River of Shrimps. After several transformations, this Portuguese term will become Cameroon, the name of this African nation which forms a triangle between Guinea, Gabon, Congo, Nigeria, Chad, and the Central African Republic. Cameroon has one of the most varied landscapes in Africa. Open plains lead to plateaus and mountains, desert zones to vast stretches of impenetrable forest. Right in the heart of one such forest, in the western part of the country, lives the Bangwa tribe, whose story, guided by providence, has become closely linked with that of the Focolare movement. The Bangwa are a people with an ancient civilization, a people who, far from the harmful influence of Western colonization, has been able to conserve the richness of the purest African values: respect for life, hospitality, solidarity, wisdom, and kindness that springs from a true spirit of brotherhood. They are a people with a strong sense of community, and this collective dimension is predominant in all levels of their social organization. Each of the tribe's villages is governed by a chief, the head of the village, who, together with the other chiefs, collaborates with the Fon, or king, in governing the whole tribe. Children growing up in an environment like this are naturally accustomed from a tender age to living as part of a social group. It's striking to see their sense of freedom and joy of living. Is this, therefore, a corner of the world without problems? Until 30 years ago, unfortunately, the serene existence of the Bangwa people was overshadowed by a terrible threat. Scenes like this one, in which mothers perform a traditional dance to express their grief for the death of their children, were all too common. Diseases of all kinds, but above all malaria and sleeping sickness, were decimating the population. The infant mortality rate had reached 90%. The Bangwa people couldn't stand idle in the face of such disaster.
In
those terrible years when so many babies were dying, we tried to treat them with traditional medicine, but we could not cure them. We then went into the sacred forest to pray and implored God to help us, but this didn't solve the problem either. So the Fon, our king, asked the Christians among our tribe to pray to their God for help. The Fon himself went to ask their bishop for help for his dying people.
So we arrived in Fontem one evening in February 1966, and our first home was this one here. In spite of the external difficulties and in spite of the long distance from any town, in spite of all this, each of us felt very, very happy, which came, I think, from the fact that we were beginning a new adventure with Jesus in our midst here in Africa. We felt such joy, such fullness.
We danced for joy because they had come to help us and save us from disease and death. We danced all night long. They arrived late in the evening, and the next morning they were already at work. They wasted no time in getting started. first in Forju's house, and they continued to this day.
People needing medical attention came in large numbers, and the hut, which served as a dispensary, soon reached its bursting point. The critical health crisis meant there was no time to be lost in the construction of a hospital. But without the means and without the materials, it was an immense challenge.
But
the people got involved right away. They came with us to cut down trees, they gathered stones, they brought sand from the river, and in just a few months' time we'd already laid the foundations for the first wing of the hospital.
Chiara visited Fontem for the first time, and all the people, led by the Fon and his chiefs, came to meet her and to celebrate her arrival. It was truly a special moment. Chiara sensed a real presence of God, like a sun which embraces all those present and gathers them in unity.
It was as if God was embracing everyone all together. We Focolarini who were present and this entire tribe. There in that moment, it seemed to me that God was in some way blessing the initiative that was coming to life. And in the meantime, he was blessing the Bangwa people and all of us together with them. I had the intuition that there in that valley, which was all forest, all thick verdant forest, a city would rise up. And this city would be a model, a city on a hilltop, a city to be visited by many people who would find wealth there, spiritual, not material wealth, that is, the commandment of Jesus put into practice by all the people who live there.
Soon other Focolarini came, teachers, technicians, construction workers. At first, they worked above all to complete the hospital, to be able to meet the urgent medical needs more efficiently. Thanks to this, and to the selfless efforts of the doctors and nurses, there were incredible results. 10,000 people were treated in 1966, 20,000 in 1967, 30,000 in 1968, and the infant mortality rate was drastically reduced.
The first Focolarini doctors who came to Fontem found a dramatic situation in that there was an extremely high infant mortality rate. Work was started immediately, focusing on the main culprit, which was the sleeping sickness. In fact, doctors working in this hospital were able to develop a treatment protocol which is now employed all over the world with minimal side effects. And actually, they were able to reduce the infant mortality rate to less than 1%.
Today, the hospital is a very efficient structure, capable of meeting the health needs not only of the Bangwa people. Oftentimes, solidarity makes up for transportation difficulties. Even today, it's not rare to see the sick being carried by others from distant villages after walking for hours.
Today, the hospital has a capacity of 120 beds, with a staff of 80. We have medical wards for men and women, plus pediatrics, maternity, surgical, optical, and cardiological wards. There are also various laboratories at the service of the different departments.
Over the years, the hospital has continued to develop, increasing the available number of beds and equipping itself with better and more modern facilities. What's remained unchanged is the relationship with the patients. Just as in the early days of the hut dispensary, the sick person is not considered as a clinical case only, but as a person to be loved. At the same time the hospital was being built, the need arose to construct a hydroelectric plant to provide essential energy for the medical equipment. This project, which appeared to be madness, technically speaking, was entrusted to Piero Pasolini, a Focolarino who was a physicist by profession. Today, Piero's power plant has been replaced by a more modern and powerful one, capable of meeting the growing electrical needs of the little town. Many Bangwa, attracted by the new life flourishing at Fontem, decided to build their homes there, and others who'd been forced to emigrate now chose to return. The construction boom led to the rise of other industries, like a carpentry workshop and an auto repair garage. The traditional Bangwa activities, linked to the extraction of oil from the fruit of the palm tree, developed and grew thanks to automated production. In the field of education, a secondary school called Our Lady Seat of Wisdom College opened its doors. It's a boarding school providing a 5-year educational program. The original 3 wings provided classroom space. Later, dining halls were added, along with laboratories and dormitories for boys and girls, as well as the teachers' quarters. The enrollment rose from 42 in the first year to the current number of about 400. They come from the surrounding areas, but also from farther away, from all over Cameroon and even abroad. Some Bangwa who've moved to the United States or England send their children to study here. The school provides a British-based educational program with high teaching standards, proven by a variety of top-ranking positions held by many former students, some at the national level.
Our school is very greatly esteemed, and we never know how to manage to find places for everybody who asks to come here. More important than the academic results, although people look at them very closely, is the fact that we try to give an all-round education to the students. We try really to enter in all the small things that happen every day, to console them when it's necessary, to help them.
Before I came for my first year in this school, my mother called for me and told me that, Irene, you are going to Form 1, and if you don't change from what you are, then I'm expecting you back at the end of this term because I'm very sure you'll be dismissed, because I was so scattered. And I can say that before I reached Form 2, I was almost getting to a complete changed person. And now like this, I'm very proud. That is, I'm happy to say that if not a seat of wisdom, I don't think I would have been what I am, because when some people see me knowing of my childhood, sometimes they say it is a miracle. They don't believe if I'm the one.
At the end of 1969, Chiara decided to send one of her first companions to Fontem, Marilène Holzhauser, offering her one piece of advice, that is, not to speak about the spirituality of unity, but just to live it for at least the first 6 months.
I clearly realized that it was useless to go and speak out to bring our spirit if our brothers and sisters were hungry, thirsty, or homeless. Scripture says that if your brother is hungry, you can't just say, go in peace. No, first we have to give him something to eat. So it was very useful advice. She kept quiet, and they all let their actions speak for them. And these friends of ours were convinced that we had really come to love, not come for our own personal interests. Then later we were able to speak, explain what prompted us to do all this. And a deep relationship of mutual love grew among us, and they themselves realized why we had come.
No Focollarino ever arrived at Fontem and started immediately speaking of Christianity. It was the witness of their Christian life that enkindled in us the desire to embrace the Christian faith. In the same way, none of them spoke about the spirituality which motivated them, but the witness of their daily lives and works aroused in us the desire to get to know this life more deeply.
At the explicit request of the Bangwa, including those who were not Christian, the parish church was constructed. St. Clair's Parish is the center of lively pastoral activity. The 2 priests who are entrusted with the care of the faithful have a lot to do supporting the continuing expansion of the community. In addition, the parish is responsible for no less than 22 outstations in the surrounding villages, which are guided by competent and generous catechists. We read in the Apostolic Exhortation of 1995, Ecclesia in Africa, in particular, believers should show the witness of sincere mutual love. The disciples are to live in unity with one another, so that the world may know and believe. We are missionaries above all because of what we are, a church whose innermost life is unity in love, even before we become missionaries in word and deed. And it's this reality which breaks down the barriers of culture and race, which makes centuries-old prejudices and mistrust crumble, which unites two worlds, the African world and the Western world, to the point that everyone feels they belong to the same family. Looking at the valley of Fontem today, from the same point in which Chiara stopped to look at it in 1969, predicting developments unimaginable at that time, one has to admit that everything speaks of a miracle. Today, Fontem is an outstanding reality, and it appeared as such to Chiara during her third visit to the little town. A crowd gathers on the open ground of Adzi in front of the royal palace. It's a festive atmosphere, bright colors, joyful faces. This is no ordinary event.
Actually, this is the happiest day in the minds of all the BLM people. And it is a day that has brought all the BLM together. And you realize that she's actually at the heart of unity now in the BLM. So I think she is really a symbol of love. What has happened to the Bangwa man because of the presence of Chiara in the BLM, I think it is only through the blessings of God and nothing else.
Now I feel I can't leave you without having made a solemn pact with all of you, a strong and binding pact of mutual love. It's a kind of oath in which we commit ourselves to be always fully at peace among us and to make peace again each time it's broken. And, listen carefully now, as a visible sign of this pact, let us shake hands with one another.
Diamoci la mano.
Only thing that she's asking of the Bangwa people and to all of us here is that we should have a pact of peace so that we can live this unity. And she said that we should live with our brothers from other religions as brothers and sisters. And it was out of love that this light of God came to Fontem, and the fruit has really shown to everybody in the world. Fontem in particular is like the burning star of Africa.
Chiara Lubich, to me, is a woman sent by God to come and lead God's children to paradise. If we copy her example of life, of way of life, there will be peace, there will be harmony, there will be love on earth.
From today, you are known as Ma Fontem.
A few days later, the fawn wrote to Chiara, "I already see Fontem as greatly blessed and specially chosen by God to lead Africa in this new march of love and unity, the ideal given to the world by God through you. I will personally lead my people through the course of love and unity." Like beneficial waters that overflow their banks, this atmosphere of love embraces other tribes as well. The light of the ideal of unity has reached from Jumato on the high ground about an hour from Fontem. Here too, the life of the gospel is expressed in the form of social initiatives to meet the most urgent needs of the population. In the 13 hectares that were donated to the parish, there's an outpatients clinic, a carpentry shop and a small handicraft enterprise. And here too, at Fonjumator, the miracle many people speak of when they come to these valleys is repeated. The miracle of peoples who begin to flourish anew and who bear witness to the new life that inspires them. A miracle whose author, and Chiara reaffirmed this on her arrival in Fontem, is God, living and working among those who love one another. This is the secret of the miracle in the forest. This is the witness of Fontem. A revolution whose secret is revealed in the motto that Chiara gave to the students at their own request.
Volete, finiamo così, la parola di vita.
And so your word of life, and this is my conclusion.
Per voi.
The word of life for you.
Vi do la mia, quando ho incominciato a vivere così.
I give you mine, the one I used when I started.
Tutto vince l'amore.
Love conquers everything.
Anche voi, anche voi. Tutto vince l'amore.
Love
Tutto vince
conquers
l'amore.
everything.
Love conquers all. The story of Fontem seems to say love has conquered all. Love has conquered illness, death, passive resignation, poverty, the world's north-south divide, the indifference and selfishness of the West, the distrust between races. Just 30 years ago, these people risked extinction. Love has made them blossom again. Today they can look serenely to the future and offer themselves to the world as a visible sign of what the gospel can do when